Today is Wednesday, December 24, 2014, the 358th day of the year. There are 7 days remaining until the end of 2014. On this day in 1777, Kiritimas, Christmas Island, guess why? Discovered by James Cook. In the Northern Line Islands, it's right here on the map, the Republic of Kiribati, due south of Hawaii. Cook, discovered the Spaniard Hernando de Grijalva. Nobody's ever heard of this guy. Probably deserves that honor. He found it in 1537, more than 200 years before Captain Cook swings by on this day. Not that Captain Cook don't deserve his place at the table. Ultimate sacrifice. Nobody home at Christmas Island either time. No permanent population until later, although Polynesians might have used the place as a pit stop on the long voyage between the Society Islands of the South Pacific and Hawaii to the north between 400 and 1000 AD. This is the place, right here on the chart. Number nothing with a bullet. The United States wants, in mid-19th century, under the Guano Act of 1856, a real but very Jonathan Swift-sounding American law. Although Kiritimas, so far from convenience stores, nobody digs the guano, even though it's reputed to be among the finest quality guano in the world. The law says, and this is great, that any American who finds an island not ruled by an existing government, an island with guano on it, anywhere, that American can claim that island. It's the law. We wrote it. Guano used to make gunpowder, got the saltpeter in it. You didn't know that. They make gunpowder out of seabird waste, bat waste. We both learned something. Brits want to develop thermonuclear weapons program, test their H-bombs out there because it's, so remote and all. Like, who cares what goes on way out there? But by then, there's a native population on board. 5 villages develop on the island. But, it's perfectly safe. They don't evacuate. The islanders are instructed to stay inside their huts during the H-bomb tests. The first one, part of Operation Grapple, all good, goes off November 8, 1957. The yield on that one, a little higher than expected. There's a very small reported blast damage to the village settlement there. Nobody's hurt or anything, just the most minor sort of H-bomb blast damage to the village. Don't get so excited. There are 8 more like this, airdrop from a balloon, awesome, high up in the atmosphere, to limit the effects of radioactive fallout. It's the 50s. Nobody knows anything. Doesn't work. What goes up comes down. You'd imagine nuclear physicists would be familiar with Newtonian laws. But no, it's raining isotopes. Sailors, for example, on ships of the Royal New Zealand Navy, the Royal Navy of Great Britain, and the Fijian Navy, observing the test some safe distance from the detonation, experienced some distress from radioactive fallout. Nothing too serious, though. A little cancer here and there. A few very minor genetic abnormalities in the children of these guys. Nothing to write home about. They join a class action suit to get health care from the British government. Studies that inevitably follow, conducted by the British Ministry of Defense, of all people, prove few people are exposed to radiation for the tests and conclude very little or no health effects at all, which doesn't really explain all those sick people, the white people, except for the Fijians, never mind the Christmas Islanders, who have their own HMO. 55 years later, 2012, more than 1,000 ex-servicemen and their descendants still trying to get some relief from the British government because second and third generations still sick, dying early and everything. British government rules, hey man, it's too late. Permission to sue? Denied. There's a statute of limitations. Law passed all the way back in 1980, the Limitations Act. Read the damn book. It's all right here. On this day in 1914, World War I on the Western Front, the Christmas Truce begins. By December 1914, British and French allies face an uninterrupted line of entrenched German forces from Lorraine, the French region bordering Germany, to the coast of Belgium on the North Sea. There's no outflanking the enemy on either side. The territory between opposing trenches is no man's land, obstacles strewn with barbed wire, booby traps, crossing which is almost guaranteed suicide. Where 19th century tactics meets mechanized warfare of the 20th century. Barbara Tuchman in The Guns of August says during the First Battle of the Marne River, September 5 to September 12, 1914, 2 million men in combat, casualties exceed 500,000, 500K. 500,000 combatants in 8 days killed. It becomes clear the war will not be a short one. These armies spend another 4 years in the trenches. During a lull in fighting on the 1st of December 1914, British troops are surprised by the appearance of an English-speaking German sergeant. Says he's been to university in London, walks over, drops by to ask how the boys are getting along. The Tommies, so shocked by the audacity of the visit, they forget to kill him. The new Pope, Benedictus XV, on December 7, 1914, a humanitarian, calls for official truce on Christmas Day to reflect on the meaning of the holiday. High military command, that's just not going to happen. Only it does. On this day, the day of Christmas Eve 1914, the guns fall silent. The truce, unofficial, widespread across the Western Front as soldiers walk across no man's land to talk, smoke, exchange presents, play football, kicking an empty canned beef tin around the artillery craters. 1915, far fewer troops arranged Christmas Eve troops by then verboten by high command. By 1916, embittered, pinned down troops living with filth, rats, disease, poison gas attacks, aerial bombardment, increasing loss of life, catering and bottle service canceled, ever less hopeful chance of survival, no longer interested in exchanging uniform buttons as souvenirs, tobacco, tins of that disgusting potted beef. Nonetheless, occasionally a very temporary peace spontaneously breaks out along the front amid the slaughter. Infantry entrenched close enough to hear the singing of the enemy, to shout greetings across the ruined landscape between them, emerge from trenches to openly gather, converse, trade cigarettes, recover wounded or dead comrades. In all, about 100,000 Brits, French, and Germans meet in friendship, observe the holiday, then go back to their butchery of one another. When World War I, the Great War so-called, ends on November 11, 1918, 10 million military personnel and 7 million civilians are dead, making that now distant conflict one of the deadliest in history. Chris Hedges, in Death of the Liberal Class, writes, "The corporations that profit from permanent war need us to be afraid. Fear stops us from objecting to government spending on a bloated military. Fear means we will not ask unpleasant questions for those in power. Fear permits the government to operate in secret. Fear means we are willing to give up our rights and liberties for the promises of security. The imposition of fear ensures that the corporations that wreck the country cannot be challenged. Fear keeps us penned in like livestock." From Rutland, Vermont, this is Richard Alcott speaking.